And we're back, with some more oxygen not included. And today I think I'm just going to finish off the last of the map, just to start anyway. Having this area all cleaned up and making it so much more accessible has reminded me that yes, this is normally something that I should have got around to a lot sooner. Basically, we want to get rid of all this water off the map, all the liquids, clean everything up. It improves game performance, and it just means that we can take advantage of all the vents and geysers, including the ones I didn't even realize existed because I hadn't discovered them yet because I hadn't dug up the area. So, yeah, just give me a few minutes there while we fast forward through time. It's so beautiful. It's just all clean. Well, okay, except for the oil biome. Just ignore the oil biome for now. But everything else, just pristine. There was an oxyfern over here that was causing little blobs of oxygen to float up. We got rid of that one. We also got all the water and sent it into this tank, which is now starting to get a little bit full. I really don't want to have to expand that again. We kind of chucked it down a little bit more. We might have to put that down to the foundations, but that's okay. That's okay. Now, I would like to do a few big projects to finish off, but I think the first thing I'd like to do is maybe sort out water. You see, where is it? We have one saltwater geyser right here. We have a second saltwater geyser over here. And we have a third saltwater geyser over here. Now, people were saying, why don't we just, use some geothermal heat to boil the water? And I thought, yeah, we could do that. We've done that before. And then someone pointed something out, and I went, oh my god, I'm a muppet. Yeah, I know, it must have been a Tuesday. Just dump it into the geothermal heat pump. Pump all the salt water into that. And it will then convert it into clean water, well, steam, which we can then just dump through the steam turbines. We already have the setup there. And we should have enough power with this setup to keep us going in the machine. I do want to set up another sour gas boiler, just like a different design. This one, though, I am really happy with this design. It worked out great. Like, it turns on, it turns off, it doesn't break, it's been running consistently for long periods of time. And if you want to get that self-rate, you totally could. People were saying, what if you wanted the self-rate? I mean, extend this on one more tile, and you could just stick in an auto sweeper right there, and then, like the bricks would come out, one more area, one more tile, and boom. All right, so it wouldn't be perfectly rectangular anymore, but if you really want to get the sulfur, go for it. This was made to be a little bit compact and nice and neat. In here, I've left this on running for ages, like just hundreds of cycles, just leaving it flat out, and it works fine. And I've left it running, intermittently, where it turns on and off as necessary. Also runs fine. One thing, though, is if you leave it running flat out for ages, what happens is you end up with a pressure differential. As in, because it's running so long, the water ends up getting pumped out over here, and it gets turned into steam on this side. And in that steam, well, it's high pressure, so it flows over here to the lower pressure and gets sucked into the steam turbine. And this whole thing is sort of controlled by this, the amount of water that gets recycled back in. When it starts running intermittently, well, then the pressure sort of evens out across the whole thing. So if it's been running for ages, and you turn it off to run intermittently, what happens is all the high pressure that was over here evens out, and the whole thing ends up overpressured for a while. Well, not overpressured. Well above the 20 kilos mark in here that normally results in the output water from this getting sent right back in. So instead, all the water for ages will just get output out of the system, and the temperature in here rises a little bit. Like right now, it's only 147, but you give this, say, another 30, 40 cycles, it might get up as far as 160 or so. But eventually, the pressure will even out again, and it'll get back to normal. So as far as I can tell, this thing is rock solid stable, and it's a variable use, well, sour gas boiler. What was it? What did we end up calling it again? Ah, yes, a sour tart boiler. I do like that name. I mean, it doesn't look like a tart, but it is pretty sour. All right, so what we got to do is get all the water from our 3 disparate sources, pump that into the geothermal generator, then have that water filtered, well, turned into clean water, and then dumped in here, and then the excess dumped into space. I think we need to, put a hard limit on my liquid tanks. My addiction to liquid tanks needs to, I need to, cut that off and stop doing that. Dump all the water that we don't need. I mean, this liquid tank is going to take care of everything. One thing, all the toilet water from this, we get every time they use the toilets, the water here immediately gets filtered, and then the excess just gets sent directly over here. This stuff is riddled with germs, like just absolutely riddled, which you'd think would cause some problems. And it kind of does. But you got to remember, this entire water tank is clean water. So germs can't survive in clean water, they can only survive in polluted water, so they slowly dissipate until eventually there is none left. And the liquid pump is down here, which means all the water we're pumping into our oxygen system, yeah, that's coming from all the way down there, which is miles and miles and miles. Well, again, there's some stuff feeding onto it right now, but basically it's really far away from the germs. So unless this tank, goes down an awful lot, we should have clean water with this. We could put together a whole filtration system involving chlorine to clean the water before it goes in, but I figure this is just larger and does this exact same thing and requires us to do nothing, which is just, far preferable. Bigger and less action required on our part? Hell yes. Now, how are we going to pipe all this in is the question. It's so much easier to work when there's nothing in the way. All right, what we're going to try and do is this. We're going to dump water into these, then that water is going to come out here and it's going to back up in these tanks. Well, not yet, not yet. But the water's going to back up in these tanks. Once the tanks have backed up completely, then the overflow, when these tanks are fully backed up, will go all the way over here. 1 second. These are insulated pipes, by the way. We don't want that heat leaking out. And then it will get over as far as the water tank, at which point it will start going up towards the top. And once the water gets to about here, we don't want it going any higher than that. We have uses for the higher end of the tank. And then those pipes can be continued on to space where we can dump the rest of it. I still don't want to use infinite liquid storage. And I think that's a big enough water tank. I need to, stop increasing the size of the water tank. This is fine. This is plenty of water. We will never spend that. Either that or I should just flood the whole map and be done with it. One or the other. Now, what I want to do is sort of process all the water as it comes in, but still use this for power occasionally. We might like to still have this kick in when the time comes, because this is 10 steam turbines. Having 10 steam turbines generating, 8,500 kilowatts of power now and then would be nice if we could just have that when we needed it, while also making sure we process all the water as it comes in. So let me just run a few pipes here. Actually, maybe I can sort of demonstrate with this one. The theory here is this. We would say this produces water. We would immediately pump that water and it would start filtering into the system. In fact, let's change that now. I should be able to turn that on right here. Yep. And yeah, that water would start flowing in. And as that water starts to flow in, it will block the water coming from this direction because it can't jump across the line. Meaning now the salt water is going in and then that water will back up in the system. This means if there's any salt water to come in, that will immediately be processed first. And we're not going to send the polluted water here, just salt. And then what we'll do is we'll have to run a second line in here. And then there's 3 sources of salt water, so I'll have to load balance the third source between the first 2 sources. And I need to figure out how to do that as well. Actually, I'll probably have to load balance all 3 sources, won't I? This is going to get really weirdly, pipely complicated. All right, give me a few more minutes to figure this out. But on the bright side, it's so much easier to run infrastructure. I'd forgotten this. This is one of the things you need to do. I should have done this ages ago. Just demolish the map. Be done with it. Get rid of it so you have plenty of space. You can run the pipes and the power where you need it to go. You don't have to worry about, I got to demolish this whole area first. No. And the game runs smoother. Everything runs faster. Just less problems all around. Now, give me 2 seconds. This is not my... yeah, this is awkward, isn't it? What we've done here is something a little dumb. We're going to run this line in here. We've got 3 lines to run in. This line runs in here, and then it'll split 50-50 and pop out, and then go on to these 2 lines. That way we load balance between these 2 areas. Then it's going to pop into these tanks, and then we just have the 2 tanks move on. We want to be able to store up to about 10 tons of water on each line. And then those 2 lines are going to be sent down here and dumped into the geothermal generator, the geothermal heat pump. I'm kind of glad I didn't go with... I was going to go with all 3 inputs and put in a third set over here. Whereas, yeah, put in a third geothermal pump setup. But then I thought, no. Think of how messy my piping is. This is just with 2. Doing 4? That would be the worst. Now, what's going to happen here is this is quickly going to back up the system. You see, that's going to fill up this geothermal heat pump a lot faster than it should. And when it does, these things are going to start overpressurizing because they're not on constantly yet. So what we want to do is quickly go around and tap into these other ones. One of the great things is once we tap into these, I can rip out all of these filtration systems at the top. We won't need them. We just need to get the water from this and the water from this, which is currently doing nothing. And we need to run them down here. it's a distance. It's a tiny bit of a distance, but we have plenty of rock available, thankfully, because we've demolished most of the rock on the map to turn it into building materials, so we can make lots of long runs of insulated piping. And that is the second saltwater geyser plugged in. So that's pumping down here, though I've encountered something that I wasn't expecting here. Well, don't you always, I suppose. So this water goes down, it splits, it goes in, and this is now full, right? So it's got enough liquid in it, so now it's going, yes, I want to spit that liquid at the vents. So this vent here, it's over pressure. Once it goes above 120 kgs of pressure around it, steam, whatever, it stops venting. Now, that's fine. So then I look at this one over here. It's only 46, 47 kilos around it, and this one is over pressure. Or not over pressure, it's not venting at all. What's going on here? You can see this one is ready. It should be venting, but it's not. Why is that? Because that's driving me nuts. My understanding was, if that one's venting, this one should be trying to vent. If like both of them should be trying to vent at the same time. They're both hooked up to the same system. What am I missing here? I thought maybe I was missing, like, did I have to have an input here? Was that what was causing it or something like that? You know what? Let's try this. Like, if we hook that up there? No? Why? Why do you do this? I've disconnected it. I've reconnected it. I've restarted the game. And this thing won't vent. And then at one point, it just started venting randomly for no reason. Even though there was still, like, 30 or 40 kilos of pressure around it. It just... I don't know. Why? What is going on? I'll check the documentation, maybe? Maybe there's something I'm missing. This just seems so weird. I did some playing around, and I reread some of the wiki stuff, and I think I know what's going on here. My assumption was that this geothermal heat pump would generate, say, whatever, 5 tons of steam pressure, let's say. And then it would try to exit out all of these at the same time. And if any of them had space, it would go into them. But that's not what happens, it seems. What happens is it takes however much pressure it's got, say it's 5 tons, and it says, I'm going to assign 2.5 tons to you and 2.5 tons to you. And if one of them can take it, fine. If the other one can't, then that one's going to remain blocked, gumming up the system until the other one gets finished. Which was not intuitive to me. I messed that up. I should have thought about that a little bit harder. Well, I suppose I have now, okay? So, what I've done is I've turned the system on. I've basically just, I had some automation here, I just rejigged just a tiny little bit, and I've just turned this on flat out. Which means this one here should slowly start to catch up, and eventually it will also be blocked constantly as well, which is kind of what we want. And while that is happening, we're going to go over here, and we're going to quickly set this up. We've also been able to rip out all of the stuff that was there. The desalinators are gone. Actually, we can get rid of that. The desalinators are gone. The water sieves are gone. This whole system is now just clean water. There's no way to get any contaminated stuff in here. There's a little bit of polluted water down here that might get in, but I'm not too worried about that stuff. That's going to go down to the or to the geothermal heat pump, and it'll get boiled up one way or the other. Which is more than a little bit. What are you set to? It's above 250 kilos. Yeah, it'll slowly catch up with that saltwater geyser. What's the output on that? 10 kilos a second? Jesus, okay. It'll take us a while, but we'll catch up with that backlog. Now, a quick extraction thing here. Finished, tidied, cleaned up, good to go. All liquids are getting pumped down, so all 3 of them are now tapped into. This one's got a little bit of polluted water it's got to get rid of. And all that comes down here, goes across here, and I'll cover that in a section. I just want to... This thing right here. We've managed to even these out pretty much. You'll see this geovent is venting 1,687 kilos. This one's... the other one's venting 1,710 kilos. So they're just about even on pressurization, so they should all vent roughly at the same time. It's not essential that they do that, but it would be preferable. And then what happens is the 10 kilos of water they have, because, well, there's 5 steam turbines strapped on top of both of them, will keep getting recycled until the temperature drops below about 210 degrees. Then once it drops below that, that means, well, we don't be wasting the power. I mean, we could. We have the ability to do so, but I'd prefer not to. But anyway, once it's recycled enough that it's got the temperature down, the excess water is then sent up here and dumped into this section. Now, you can ignore these stockpile for here. Let's just assume that we've got enough salt water coming in that we don't need to recycle this water. But all of that water that's coming out is then sent, all the way up here and goes to the top of the water tank, which, yeah, we're going to have to put in wastewater exhaust on those in a minute. But the salt water comes in from all locations and gets split up evenly between these 2 inputs, or the 2 inputs into the heat vent, or the geothermal heat pump. So that keeps filling it up and it overrides all of this recycled water here. But what'll happen eventually is we're outputting a little bit about 10.5 kilos of water from the 3 vents, and this thing can consume 20 kilos a second. So in theory, I don't even know how you'd run the numbers on this properly. This salt water will eventually have all passed through and will run out of water coming through, either through the vents have gone dormant for a while or we've eaten through the backlog. It might take a while, it might take a few hundred cycles, but when that happens, well, what happens when we want power? You see, what I want from this is consistent power, if I need it, while at the same time complete recycling of all the water, or complete desalination of all the water coming through. That's what we want. So, to do that, we have these 4 water tanks here, which stockpile all the salt water. If the salt water in this tank goes above 60%, it turns on the automation. That automation goes here onto a ribbon feeder, that goes on to line 2. Line 2 feeds back into this power generation, and line 2 also feeds into this power generation. So what happens is, if there's too much salt water backed up in the system, it turns on the steam turbines and says, go flat out, boys. Just flat out the whole way. We need you to be running to process all the salt water backlog we've got. Might actually move it over to the first 2 tanks, considering how this is going. I was hoping to get a stockpile here, but I figure we're definitely going to make that. So you know what? We shall copy those settings over, and we'll use the first 2 tanks instead. That seems, yeah, right about there should be grand. What that means is we should hopefully have a little bit of a backlog. Well, we should always have enough salt water to keep us going for a while, and then once we eat through the backlog of salt water, just say we keep burning off, and then we have no more excess salt water, so it shuts off. It doesn't say you need to keep processing anymore. But then we require power. These things will automatically turn on because they're hooked up to the battery system like everything else. And then just say we still run down to salt water because we need so much power because we started burning through an awful lot of it. Then what will happen is it'll start recycling the water that we're sending out. As in the output water is going to automatically go into these. And once all the salt water runs out, this thing, there's no automation required. It will just start, well, flowing into the pipes. Because there will be no more salt water flowing, the clean water can get in. And then the clean water will recycle, and we have 5, 10, 15, 20. We have 25 tons of water on each one of these. You lose a tiny bit of water when you go through each one of these, so 5 water tanks was probably too much. We could have got by with 2 or 3 probably. But this way, we should always have power, we should always have desalination, and the whole thing should keep running with, well, the minimal amount of automation we've got on it, which is the way I like it. It's sort of like a brute force ignorant solution to make sure we're desalinating all our water and generating lots of power. And these things should now have 100% uptime for at least the last cycle. Yeah, this cycle and last cycle, 100% uptime. And in another 4 or 5 cycles, or another 3 cycles, these things should have 100% uptime, at least until we cut through the backlog of salt water that's going on. And there's a lot of salt water in the system. We have managed to get through one of the saltwater backlogs, and I love this load balancing here. This is working perfectly. Both of them are splitting. Okay, I suppose you've got... Oh, actually, no, we'll see this blob here, but see that gap? That gap should be spread out now across both lines. Give it to me. Yeah, there we go. So the gap is split evenly. That way we're load balancing the lines between all 3. And if, just say these 2 are running flat out, since they're higher up on the bar, those 2 are running flat out, they'll fill the first 2 pipes and this will not be able to feed on, and that was what we preferred because this one has a larger water tank, meaning it can store more if, you know, there's a heavy influx of salt water all at once. That should work that way. Oh, and in the background I did a little bit of expansion. Yeah, these things are all fully loaded, so our backlog is full. I made sure that we put in the exhaust pipes. So now these pipes don't stop right here. They continue on. They hop across. They go up, over, and to here. This is actually, there's a vacuum of space back there, so we're dumping those into the background of space. It was either this or I extended the water tank. And I have to... I mean, I am kind of tempted to flood this map, though. We have so much water inbound, it would be relatively simple just to leave it run for a few thousand cycles. But we'd have to wall in a bunch of stuff and maybe pressure damage problems. Like, there's things we could do. It would take, like... It'd take a few episodes to make sure everything was waterproofed up, but it definitely could be done. And this polluted water vent, we could also sieve that, or we could start feeding it into the geothermal pump, though. Then we'd have to load balance across 4 inputs, and we'd probably need a 3rd input there, and then we'd probably want to hook it. No. There's a few other things I want to get done. The first one is I still have not taken care of the moves. Oh, actually, are you finished? You should be ready to launch right about now. This is our scout. So they can now go out as far as the Icy Giant. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 things left to scan. That is it. In fact, do you scan that? Yes, you do. It's got vacuum, 100%. That's, Okay. Let's hope this helium giant is better. I messed up. I actually scanned this helium giant. I would have been better off not. Reason being is there was one unknown item. You know the way you have these question mark things? And while they're unknown, you can't get them, I believe. So what happened here was the unknown was abyssalite. We'd been better off just sending out a cargo rocket for 1 or 2 tons. And if it was just solid cargo, we wouldn't have taken water, we wouldn't have taken hydrogen, we only would have taken niobium, giving us 1 or 2 tons of pure niobium. Now if we send it out, we're going to get, well, about 2/3 niobium, 1/3 abyssalite. Yeah, sloppy on my part. But hey, it doesn't matter. We don't actually need the resources right now. Because we've been doing this run for so long in the background to do all the sweeping up and the cutting out, we have 111 tons of steel. Yes, and it only gets better than that if we go over to the ancient specimen block here. Every time we use this, it costs us 1 kilo of diamond, and it gives us 100 kilos of fossil. Or should I say, we basically crush up the fossil to turn it into lime. So for every 1 kilo of diamond, we get out 5 kilos of lime. So it takes 10 kilos of lime to get ourselves a run of steel. So that's 100 kilos of steel for every 2 kilos of diamond, assuming we have the iron ore. We have the iron ore. We have 814 tons. So I've been kind of running that in the background. In fact, I think it's probably more efficient. Instead of going to the satellites to grab steel, it would be probably better off if I just went to this one and grabbed more diamond and then used the diamond to get more fossil instead of just directly trying to harvest steel. I mean, 33% steel every run is not bad. That's, what, 666 kilos. But that takes about, what, 12 cycles? Yeah, whatever. Doesn't really make a difference. For now, these things are cycling back and forth, and they're doing their job quite well. This thing is eating all the heat like a champ, and every time they come back, they have a percentage chance of bringing back one of these artifacts. It's getting a little out of control over here. Decor-wise, yeah, this is our nicest corridor, and no one lives here. Alright, next up, there's 2 things I still have to do. One is make a more simplified sour gas boiler. I want to try and make one using the anti-entropy nullifier. Yeah, one of these guys. Hopefully we have one closer to the oil biome, or and we'd only be running like a 1 kilo block on that, maybe less. It depends what the cooling's like on it, and we want to make like a pre-space metals sour gas boiler, which might be a little bit tricky. Then I'd like to try, you know what, we'll worry about that later. I also want to grab the gassy moos so that we can put together a gassy moo farm or 2. And 3, yeah, it turns out these trees can be destroyed by meteors. It appears to be incredibly rare, but it is possible. This one has been destroyed a while ago, which is basically scuppering this entire line. Basically, everything underneath that snow is not getting sunlight. These things are only working because we actually have some of those shine bugs down there providing them with light. Anyway, sorry about the lack of progress on this one. I know we only really got the geothermal set up and the water filtration and some waste stuff done. And, okay, the cleaning up. It was just I spent a lot of the weekend sort of doing this while, like, you know, you have some stuff going in the background or watching on the side while you're trying to get the things done. Also spent a lot of time on Dyson Sphere. A lot of stuff done in the background on Dyson Sphere as well. But that's all of the main work done. All the rest should just be projects, which I'm kind of looking forward to. Actually, no, the sour gas ones are kind of scaring me. They're going to be a real painful. But I definitely want to try out the gassy moos. I'm going to cut this out here. I hope you enjoyed them. Good luck. Ooh, one last thing. This is how much resources we have on the entire map. All in one location. So 14,041 tons. Nice.